of course, I have a purpose, kind of, but it's not, oh, I want to be able to play a special piece. I want to be able to reach a fixed goal, a defined goal. It's not about something where I want to get to in future. It's something that I want to do now.
Hello, Stephanie. So nice to see you again. How have you been?
Yeah, thank you for having me, and it's nice to meet you again here on this platform and in your channel. Yeah, I'm doing so far, it's fine so far.
That's great. Well, I want to bring you back because last time when we chat, and for those who haven't seen the conversation, you really should. You recommended a book by Dr. and Laura Lecoq, Tiny Experiments. And there's a lot of things in here that really resonated with me. So, for those who are not familiar with the book, the byline is How to Live Freely in a Goal Obsessed World. And I think that really speak to your approach when it comes to you and music. And I thought I would bring you in here to have a conversation around experimentation, but in the context of harp playing and music playing, because that's your domain, your practice. And I think it might be a timely conversation for us to have because we're getting to the end of the year and perhaps we want to start next year anew. So here we are talking about musical experimentations. So for the audience who missed your interview, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is the one thing that perhaps people should know about you when it comes to music?
Um, well, first of all, about my professional qualification, maybe I have studied music here in Frankfurt in Germany, and my main instrument was the flute, and I lost completely the joy, and I have to check my dog, a child dog,
Aww.
TV, and she is trying to eat my cables.
Oh dear.
So I try to keep her a bit on my lap. Yeah, and
Hello.
I lost the joy in playing music because it was no longer playing, it was more working on something, and it was a lot about reaching certain goals, fulfilling expectations of other people, and about failure as well. And and after my studies, I wanted to do something new.
Mhm.
And so I started with a new instrument, and that was the harp. And first of all, I thought I would have to get a teacher and to learn the technique and so on. But very soon I realized that the teacher also tried to push me into the same direction, and I didn't want to go there anymore. So I decided to go on my own, and then I discovered that I really like to play around on my harp like I have been doing as a child when I play the guitar. Um, and that led me, first I started to compose things. I started to compose my own pieces that met my abilities and my skills. Um, and I worked together with a storyteller, and I composed pieces to belonging to his stories that he invented. And after a while, I found out it put me to the same pressure because I had pieces and they could go right or they could go wrong. And so I ended up in being stressed again. And I decided not to follow this path longer. And then I took the risk of improvising while he was telling his stories. And it came out that I always had some ideas coming up, what to play. I didn't make any plans anymore. And I so enjoyed this experience of letting it happen, and it it never happened that nothing came to my mind or to my fingers. Um, yeah, and that was the start of getting into improvisation. And before that, I always have thought of improvisation being blues or jazz or something like that. And I thought, this is really complicated, and I have to think a lot about chords and so on. And then I discovered that there's another way of improvisation, and you can just start anywhere and see what happens and where it leads you. And then I started teaching that to other people, and yeah, and over the years I developed more and more ideas on how to teach free play. And free play for me is different to jazz improvisation or blues, because jazz and blues also has certain very narrow rules that you have to follow. And again, you can be wrong. So I wanted to leave the concept of right and wrong, and I wanted to enter the realm of experimenting and experiencing and playing, joyful playing, um, and just without judgment. Because judgment is something that causes a lot of trouble in everybody's life, I would say. Yeah, and this became a philosophy in teaching and in playing. And yeah, I have been following this path now for quite a long time. And I would say it's not even a path, it's more like spending some time being in this field of musical expression.
And what I'm hearing, Stephanie, is that your goal, if you want to call it that, is actually for enjoyment rather than pursuing someone's um, judgment or their evaluation of
Yes.
who you are as a musician. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
And
And
have you find that goal, that shift from sort of being that result into the enjoyment change you? And what do you love about that?
it took away the stress. In earlier times, I was really anxious to get on stage and to play in front of people. I had a huge issue with stage fright because I always followed this concept of I have to prove that I'm worth it. You know, I am worth to get on stage, play in front of people, and maybe even get paid for that. So money also is a very yeah, is something that might put a lot of pressure to what you do when you are on stage. And then I thought, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't charge anything when I'm playing to get rid of the pressure, but that didn't work. And at the end, I very often played without any money, but I still had the pressure, and at the same time, I was not really content with the setting of packing all my stuff and driving to the venue and setting the stage and everything, and then going home after, let's say, 6 to 8 hours without any payment. And so I found myself in the situation of, yeah, thinking about who, what, what do I want with music? Do I really want or have to prove my personal value or my value as a musician? Do I have to prove anything to people? And am I able to prove it to as many people as possible? Best everybody. So I try to be everybody's darling, kind of, and this didn't work. And it's not only in music. I mean, it's a general yeah, it's a general approach to life to try to please as many people as possible and to not offend anybody. I mean, I still don't want to offend anybody, but um, I found out that it was about something like I wanted to be liked and I wanted to be maybe admired, and I wanted people to say, "Oh, she is a great harp player. She has great skills, and she is so amazing," and so on. And I thought, okay, wait a minute. This is the thing that puts a lot of pressure into on me. And maybe this is not the way of music. So what is music for me? And what has music been for me when I was a child? And as you know, small children, especially before they enter school or preschool, they have this pure joy in exploring their environment and in exploring their own capabilities or their own how do you say, yeah, what they are able to do. They
Mhm.
want to find out, what can I do, what happens if I do this, and what happens if I do that, and then it's the pure joy of experimenting without judgment. And then comes the parents and they say, oh, a nice tower that you have built with your little building blocks, but see, if you do it this and that way, it's going to be even better. And this is where the whole mess is starting. So I wanted to get back to the state before the first judgment appeared, which was
Mhm.
probably by my parents or by any other adults, that for me were the gods, because they were those who knew everything and they could do everything they wanted, and they could limit me in the way they wanted. And then I remembered that this really was not so nice, and I wanted to get back to that freedom and the joy of my early childhood.
Mhm.
Um,
I love that story because I often think about, why music tends to land itself on that sort of judgmental place. It's not like, if I'm reading a book and I'm reading it wrong, anyone is going to come and tell me, right? But it's so easy, I guess, to do it in music because you're producing the sound, you're doing the things, and it's very easy for you to take external cues to inform what you're doing as right or wrong. But that takes away your own joy and your own connection with what you're doing because now you're getting all these external feedback and we're
yes,
calibrating ourselves to please the external feedback instead of doing something from our heart.
yeah.
So I think,
Intrinsic
right,
versus extrinsic motivation
for
that's the
sure.
point. Mhm.
Yeah,
And
and I agree with you that there is a time and place for, proving yourself, but that's not all what music is about all the time, right?
exactly. I mean, of course, there are settings where you need to prove yourself. That is, if you want to have a job in an orchestra,
Hmm.
of course, you will have to read music. It's important, because otherwise you are completely lost. You cannot memorize everything. You cannot memorize a whole Wagner opera or something like that. And every night another program. And you have to function on your instrument if you want to play in a professional orchestra. So there's no doubt that in that case you have to prove yourself, because you have to prove that you are able to do the job. Otherwise, you are useless for the orchestra.
It's true. Yeah.
Um, and like, I always compare music with language, because music is a language. Um, if you think about language and how we learn language as little children, nobody gives us a book and says, now we read the first sentence. And the first sentence is, my name is Stefanie. Maybe this is the way how I learned English at school. My name is Stefanie. This is my dog, Phoebe in my case, and here's my brother so and so, and my sister so and so, and these are my parents, and so on. So I learned all these predetermined sentences while learning a new language. But when we start to learn our mother tongue, it's completely different. What are we doing? We hear our mother even long before we are born, because we hear her talking when we are still in the womb. And so we have a lot of audi, auditive input. And when we come out, we hear it even better because we don't hear it through all the liquid. And then we realize that she is trying to get in touch with us by using these vowels and these all these sounds. And she is having not only the mother, but everybody is having this mimic expression as well, and they have a body expression and all that. And these are all impressions that we get from our outer world. And finally, we realize that we also are able to produce sounds. And we start experimenting with our tongue and with our vowel, you know what I mean? And we doing things like la 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 ba ba la ba 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 blah, and that's experimenting. It's experimenting. And then comes a moment where we produce a mama. Oh, and then mama is really happy and she's cuddling us, and that's a beautiful experience of connection. It's about connection. And then we reproduce it because we see she shows a reaction. And it's an emotional reaction and it's a positive reaction. It's like a positive, it's kind of a
Reinforcement.
feedback, but it's
Yeah.
not judgment, it's communication. That's a difference.
Right.
And then we listen a lot to the language of other people. We hear so much before we speak our first words. And after a while, we learn, oh, okay, when I say mama, my mom reacts. But when I say daddy or papa in Germany, then my dad reacts. So there's probably a difference between mama and papa. Okay. Then we realize, oh, there's kind of a rule. I mean, we don't think in terms of rules as children, but internally we learn rules. And then the more we imitate the people from outside, the more we are able to communicate and to communicate what we need and to communicate and to also understand what other people are telling us or what want us to know about them. And this is very satisfying. It's satisfying the needs. It's a basic human need of communication, of being together, of being connected, because we are not made to be alone. We are social beings. And so we fulfill a basic need by talking. And we improvise many years before we even learn the first letter to read or to write. In music, something happened. um, Somebody had the idea first to teach us how to read the dots on the sheet of music, or to teach us how to hold an instrument, or to teach us this and that and that, and how to do it right and how to do it wrong. Nobody teaches a little child how to correctly pronounce a written word. Nobody does it. Of course, later on, when we are able to read and to write, then we discover that there are books and that we can read about the thought of other people that we don't even know and don't even meet in person, but we can read it on the paper. And some of these people, they have composed poems and they are masters in language. And then we read the poems very late when we are more in our teenage years or even later. And we discover the beauty of the language and we discover the mastership of language of these poets. And of course, we can enjoy to read their poems out loud and maybe even read it or learn it by heart and speak it to other people to show them the mastership of these poets. This is one aspect of language. Or an actor, he learns his role, and of course he won't improvise when he is trying to play King Lear or something. That I mean, it's Shakespeare, and he wants to give life to this figure that Shakespeare has thought of and that Shakespeare has invented. And of course, the actor uses Shakespeare's words, but in acting, you find improvisation as well, because there's improv in acting as well, improv theater. And so it's nothing bad about learning a piece by using sheet music, because you discover what somebody else has expressed through music. And you can learn from that, especially if it's a masterpiece. But even if it's not a masterpiece, you still can connect with the person who has composed the piece. And you can learn about the style of this person. And you can add whatever you want to add to your own treasure chest, as I call it, of intuition, because we can feed our intuition with the ideas coming from other people. But this, again, is not about getting it right or wrong. It's about learning and I'm looking for the word.
Intertwine and interconnect.
Internalizing.
Yeah, internalizing, yes.
Internalizing the ideas of other people, because we are all like a big net. We are all somehow in contact with each other, more or less. And we feed each other with our ideas so that we can grow together. And you can pick whatever serves your needs at the moment and whatever serves you for your personal growth. And this is not the same as I am learning this piece to perform it on stage, to fulfill the expectations of a jury or of to pass an audition or whatever. No, it's more about growing personally and growing as a musician.
That is just a brilliant way of making that difference between a intuitive music practice compared to, say, what you describe as learning the dot. So I was born in Hong Kong and my mother tongue is Cantonese and I have to learn English. So, and I've always find learning English difficult because I have people showing me this is how a sentence is constructed, and you try to replicate it, but it never truly makes sense 100% the same way my mother tongue does, because I am just replicating what was put in front of me and hope I can regurgitate it later. And the goal when I was early English learner has always been just reproduce what people tell you to do, because that's how English works. So when you describe the difference between learning a different language versus your mother tongue, and I think about how that intuition works and how some of these things just comes naturally to me. It makes sense to contrast it with English. So I have this question in here that I wanted to ask you, and I think I answered it already indirectly, because I wanted to know what would be the purpose for those who are very goal driven. What would be the purpose to engage in intuitive practice? And I think what I'm hearing from you is you want to take music away from the let's follow what is written on this page note by note to a place where it just comes out of you as it is, whatever that looks like, and be happy and okay with it, because we don't judge that. It just is. Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, if you ask for the outcome, Anne Laura in her book, she is talking about outcome and output, and these are two different things. So if you ask for the outcome, then I could give back the question, what is the outcome if you practice a piece dot by dot? What is your personal outcome out of this? And you can dive really deep into that question. And I mean, I have done so in the beginning of this interview when I discovered that it was something about I thought I had to prove my value. So it's something about self-value maybe, or self-esteem. And we are dependent from other people to feel that. And this somehow is not unusual, because we are dependent of social bondings, of course. Now I have to take care that I don't lose my thread. And if what is for you? What would you say for yourself? I mean, I asked not only you personally, I asked the whole audience. Ask yourself, what is my outcome when I practice a piece dot by dot and I feel very stressed, maybe because it's going near to my limits, even maybe beyond my limits? What is the outcome if when I manage to do so?
So for me, and that is such an important question for me, because I also came from the sort of upbringing of learning music for the sake of, taking an exam or basically being judged, right? So if I always associate the outcome as you play it really well to the point where you score a very high mark. And I realized that that outcome does not connect with my needs in a very intrinsic way, because I don't need someone to judge me and tell me that you play the scale perfectly. So when I started the harp, like you said, you want to ask that question many, many times and really dig deeper. And I think at the end of the day, what I realize when it comes to music is I want enjoyment, because I love music. It's such a big part of myself. So taking an exam doesn't actually lead me to that outcome. So I have to approach it very differently in order to get to that outcome. So yes. For me now, I call that my North Star is I just want to play beautiful music that I enjoy. It's not for others to judge. It's not for others to evaluate. So I couldn't care less. I shouldn't be when I am, playing something simple that makes me happy. But what I found interesting, though, is when I do try to improvise, I end up being my judge. I said, Victoria, you're doing this wrong, but is there really right or wrong? Help me unpack that. Why would I become my own judge when I try to just noodle around in the harp? What's going on there, Stefanie?
Can you remember, have you any memories of your early childhood?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, depends.
When did it start, the self-judgment?
It's probably when I start going to school, right? And I start seeing other people judging me. So I learned that judgment because I see my teacher judging me. I see my piano teacher judging me. I go into an exam room and there's this lady that I don't even know who she is, and her whole job is to judge me. I think that's where I start picking up that judgment.
Yes, probably. I mean, this is exactly what she writes here in her book.
Mm.
She says, I read it, we are all born with this sense of adventure. It's in children's nature to experiment and explore the unknown. And then later she says, but then something changes. We are taught to perform in both meanings of the word, to achieve specific targets, whether in school or at work, but also to present ourselves in a way that conforms with social expectations.
Mhm.
This is really, it's on page 27. It's quite in the beginning of the book. And I think this is important to realize that the self-judgment origins in getting to school. And I'm quite critical about our school system. I don't know about the school system in Canada, but here in Germany, it's definitely linear goal orientated. You have to achieve something, and then you get a mark. And if you get a good mark, you get a good job. And if you don't get a good mark, then you have to repeat the year. In the worst case,
Mhm.
and maybe you get even money from your parents for good marks, and you don't get anything, or you even get pressure if you're not fulfilling the expectations. So the self judgment is an internalized judgment that we learned from outside.
Mhm.
And what I try to encourage is to get back to before this all began. And I sometimes I have this philosophic discussion over and over again about the origins of judging. As you know, in Buddhism, judgment is said to be one of the issues of mankind, because judgment is the thing that makes us unhappy. And I'm not coming from the Buddhist tradition. I'm coming from the Christian tradition, and it's we have the same roots as the Jewish tradition. And in the very first book of the Bible, the story is told about us being in paradise first. Everything was fine. We were completely happy. And then there was this tree with the apple. You know that story about the tree and the apple, and God says, don't eat it. And then came the snake, and Eve said, oh, look, Adam, I have this lovely and delicious apple. And it's the apple that made their eyes open to distinguish between good and evil. And that was the beginning of judgment. Who had the idea of planting this apple tree?
Oh.
Anyway, it's called the Tree of Wisdom. I'm not quite sure if this is a misconception, maybe, but this is where it all started, when we discovered to distinguish between good and evil, and this is judgment. And judgment takes us away from paradise. And I want to get back into paradise.
Oh.
Because paradise was quite a happy place to be, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so I decided to not judge myself when I discovered that I judge myself. Let that sink in for a moment. So if you say, oh my God, I'm judging myself again, what are you doing? You are judging yourself for judging yourself. So first of
Okay.
all, realize that you judge yourself and say,
Hmm.
oh, how interesting. Here is a little judge inside my head. Dear judge, I thank you for your opinion. Um, what do you try to teach me? Maybe this judge has something for you that is valuable. Your judge tells you what you like and what you don't like. Maybe he could. Huh? You can you we have all these roles inside ourselves, like the judge and the critic and the teacher, and we have a lot of persons inside ourselves, and all of them, they want something good for us. And the judge, he wants something good for us. What does the judge maybe want? Have you ever thought about that?
You know that now you're sounding like my therapist, but here's what my therapist told me when my inner judge come out. It's much like you said, "Thank you, judge." But then I would ask, "What are you trying to tell me?" And if I couldn't figure it out, then I said, "Why don't you step aside in the next room for a little bit, and you can come back later when I'm sure what message you have to deliver for me."
Exactly.
So I think that it might be the strategy is to first recognize that I'm judging myself, which I totally recognize, but then also making space for that judgment
This is
too.
observation. You observe that you judge yourself. And of course, the judge, he wants to make sure that that we integrate into society, which is important for us because we need society. We need to be integrated into society because it meets our need for safety as well. Not only for connection, but also for safety. We feel safer when we do something right because then we won't expect any punishment. But it's avoidance of punishment, and avoidance is not a good start to learn, because of course we can learn by avoiding things, but much better learning takes place if we just experiment and collect data, as Anne Laura in her book points out. So collecting data is what every scientist is doing or should be doing. Sometimes nowadays, I'm not quite sure if they really do that or if they are looking for a certain outcome and
True.
they design their
And then they
studies.
manufacture the data.
Yeah, exactly. But usually in the original idea of science, it was collect data and then drew conclusions from that. And then look at the conclusions, create new experiments to see if they fit with your conclusions. And if they do, fine. And if they don't, oh, okay, collect new data.
But to go back to your early example about a baby learning to make sound, right? You make something and you see if anyone is reacting to it. Is it eliciting a positive reaction? And that's how you eventually figure out that mama is the right
Yeah,
word to
but
say.
wait a minute. It's not quite correct because
Yeah.
the baby is not doing it on purpose. The baby
Okay.
is doing it just because it's doing it. It's experimenting with its possibilities of producing sounds. It's purposeless. But then it finds out, oh, if I do that, there is a reaction. But the original motivation was not to get a reaction.
Okay.
Original, I guess. I'm not a scientist about that, but I guess the origin was the pure joy in experiencing my possibilities that my body provide for me.
Right. So I think because you in your website has talked about how you advocate for purposeless play with music, and I think what you just said there has tell us that it's not that it's completely purposeless in a sense that you're not just doing it for nothing. But maybe what you meant by purposeless is not to elicit a reaction necessarily from other people, but for your own joy of tinkering and trying. Would
Yeah.
that be how you kind of define purposeless play when you said you enjoy purposeless play?
Mm. Um, yeah, it's not as black and white.
And I think that is important too, because we live in a world that is so black and white, and a lot of people wants to say, well, you tell me what that is, and I'm gonna do it. But the world is not black and white. There's a lot of if then else, there's a lot of different possibilities, and that gray zone
50
is scary.
shades.
People don't like uncertainties. I mean, I don't want to go mess around in a string, like growing up in the background that I do. I don't want to go mess up in a string and then like do something wrong, right? So it's scary to go into the gray zone, the unknown zone.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if you purposeless practicing for me means um, not doing anything without any intention or without, you know, of course, I don't want to play a cacophony because I don't like it. I mean, it doesn't sound right. I can do so, and then I will find out, oh, I don't like it, and it has a bad impact on me, and maybe even on other people that have to listen to. Nobody really enjoys hearing things like that. But still, this could be if I really am angry and I want to express this anger, I could do it, you know. Or you can't hear
I
it.
can, I can. It came through
You
really
can,
well.
yeah, I turned on
Yeah.
my original sound now. So I can do it, but so sometimes I want to sit down and I want to maybe get rid of the spinning thoughts and I want to calm down maybe. And I can use music as a vehicle for that. And then of course, I have a purpose, kind of, but it's not, oh, I want to be able to play a special piece. I want to be able to reach a fixed goal, a defined goal. It's not about something where I want to get to in future. It's something that I want to do now. Nothing in future. I mean, I will get somewhere in future, of course, because there is no other way. Because we are living in this timeline of this is the present, this is the past, and this is the future, and there is no chance of getting away from the future because we will live in the future as well, as long as we don't die. But when I sit down at my harp and I play purpose-free, purposeless, then it means I'm not thinking about the future. I am arriving in the here and now. And from here, I go the next step to the next here and now. And it's more process orientated instead of goal orientated. And the good thing about that is there is no failure. Okay, I see your question, but what if I don't like what I produce? Then it's failure? No, it's data. It's I don't like this sound. So in the next here and now, I will try a different sound and see if I like that more. And if I like that new sound more, maybe in the next here and now, I will repeat that sound that I like more. And if I'm getting bored by what I have done in several years and nows, then I feel this I feel this need of discovering something else. And then I will start again collecting data. So if I do something else, do I like that or do I don't like that? How does it, which is the impact it has on me? And then maybe I'm getting interested in, oh, if it has this impact on me, what happens if I play that for another person? Has it the same impact on that person or not? It's interesting. It's not about am I valuable? Am you know. But it's more, what happens if I play what I like so much to another person? Will this other person like it as much as I do? Will she or he or whatever it react the same way that I react, or will they react different? And um, very interesting becomes if I play together with other people that also follow this idea. Um, what happens when we play together without planning anything, just by seeing what happens, reacting to each other, and so on? Do we like it or don't we? And if we don't, what else could we try? And see if we like it better. And so it's not clear where it's going to lead us, but it's going to lead us somewhere, that's sure. Because we cannot go through life without being led anywhere. I mean, that's death. If we stay where we are, nothing new happens. Not good and not bad and not ugly or beautiful or whatever judgments we can have. If we stop moving, if we stop the flow, then we are more or less dead, even if we are still alive. Um, does that make sense somehow?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. One of my favorite things that I've heard, there's someone wrote, I think it's Dave Matthews Band. They have one line in their song called "Don't be dead before you die."
Yes.
And I think, when we don't feel that flow, like we're not naturally progressing to something, like we can be essentially dead even though when we're alive. But what I love about what you said is when you are putting something out there, I like what you said about nothing wrong. It just, and now I'm going to try a different sound and see if it grabs me more. And I also love what you said about, okay, if something moves me, does that have the same impact of other people?
Yes.
And I think that reason for sharing something is so much more grounded and authentic than I just want to put something out so impressive and everyone just gonna hit a like that is two very different experience.
Yes.
And I love the experience that you talk about because music and human being, it's about that connection. And I think we've talked a lot about how do we connect with other people with music. And I think what you just said there, and in our last interview, we actually try a little bit of that music conversation. That is such a beautiful, brilliant way to connect with other people and share that playground together.
And let me get back to the idea of language and improvisation, because what we are doing right here is improvised. I mean, we don't read a script, do we? At
No.
least I don't. I mean, I have written
I have
down
some
something,
notes, but that's it.
but I'm talking about completely different things than I have written down. And and you have thought maybe about some questions, and we have thought about what could the subject be, the topic that we are talking about. So we agreed on something like what I call a seedling.
Hmm.
We agreed on a basic where to get started. Where we agreed that we want to talk about free play, about purposeless play, and about maybe the difference between linear goal setting and this other form of goal, which is not a goal any longer because it's more a process orientated thing. So this is our topic. But while we talk, we improvise about this topic. So you can improvise, even in English, which is not our mother tongue for
Mother
me
tongue,
as
yeah.
well. Um, and of course, if we had just both had started to learn English, the conversation wouldn't go as deep.
Hmm.
But because we have gotten some practice in speaking and listening to English, And the practice is not by reading the book. The practice is by listening to people that can speak English very well and try to express ourselves in connection with these people that speak the language so very well. And then we learn, at least I learn a language better that way. I can tell you from Swedish. I have never learned Swedish from a book. I just learned everything that I can speak in Swedish is from talking to people and listening to people. And it's not correct. Much of what I say is not correct, but it's getting more and more detailed and more expressive and so on, and people understand me. And the more I talk to people in that language, the more I realize, oh, they say it that way around. Okay, next time I will say it that way around as well, because it's even easier to understand for them. And it's the same what happens in music. If you never have spoken the musical language freely, then you will never be able to speak it freely. You always only will be able to speak the pre-produced sentences that you have learned by heart. But if you want to express yourself, you have to go beyond that, and you have to jump into that cold water and talk to people. There's no other chance, in my opinion and in my experience. And so how did I get to this thought? Oh yeah, and then improvisation for people that are so used to play the pre-produced things, which are the dots on the sheet music. They have suddenly have this idea of, oh, I have to sound like Shakespeare when I speak. Instead of just stumbling around and trying to say something and see if somebody understands what I'm trying to say, and if the other person who in the optimum would be a person who is better in the language of music than I am. And this is important, keep that in mind. Play with people that can speak the language better than you do, because then this is the place where you can learn the most, where you can have the best experience. But they should be people that don't mind if you say it wrong. They shouldn't judge you. They should try to communicate with you. So, and if you do that, then you will develop. There is no other way. You will develop. There is no other way. You will get somewhere if you do something. You will get somewhere. I promise. But we try to pull on the grass to make it grow faster. And we try to skip steps. We try to be perfect. We try to sound like Shakespeare at once, because we have read so much Shakespeare or Mozart or Bach or whatever. And then we are frustrated because we don't manage to. And we have to realize that we are beginners. I mean, I'm no longer a beginner, but maybe if you start improvising music, then at first you are in a beginner state. And try to imagine yourself as somebody who just starts to learn to speak in a foreign language. And you would never tell this person, oh, you have it all wrong. You should practice more to have it right. No, you would encourage this person. And you can do that for yourself. Okay, I'm sitting down at my harp and I have no idea. I just know what I like and what I don't like when I hear it. So I start with any note. Oh, I like it. Because the harp sounds beautiful. I mean, unless you don't like harp, but then take another instrument. Oh, I like this. Okay, let's see if I have another note. When I play this note and I play the neighbor note. Aha, interesting. Do I like it? Do I like it when I play them both at once? Mm. Ooh. What does that sound with me? What does that sound with you?
There's a dissonance and kind of crashing feeling to it.
Yeah,
But it's mysterious though.
dissonance is a technical term. But what is the feeling?
It feels misalignment. It feels tense. I feel tense a little bit scared maybe. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. You feel a
mhm.
tension. The
Yeah.
tension. Tension is really a, you can feel it inside your body, the tension. And if
Mhm.
I would repeat that, after a while, you would turn off your speaker because you say, oh, it's getting on my nerves. So it's interesting to see, okay, two neighbor strings plucked at the same time cause kind of a tension. Do I want to stick to tension? Or do I want to find a way to get out of this tension? Okay, how can I maybe get out of this tension? I could try to move one of the notes. So now I have G and A flat. And when I move the A flat up a step, oh, oh, I like that. It's less tension. Yeah. Oh, and now when I move to and fro, this is also interesting because here's tension and then I release the tension. Ah, interesting. I can use that. So I'm tense. When I feel tense because I have so much stress, then it sounds like that. Two neighbor notes. Very tense. And I can release into this. So I discovered kind of a rule without even naming it. I just have this experience. Aha, when I play two neighbor notes, it causes tension. When I move the upper note up a step, it releases. Let's see if that same works when I move down a step with the lower note. Ooh, this also works. So I can move up a step, go back, and then move down a step with the lower note. And I have two different solutions for my tension. This is philosophic again, because if you are struggling with any issue, there's not only just one solution. For most of our problems, there are more than one solution. And who can tell you which is the best solution? I mean, the world is full of people that try to tell you which are the best solutions for your problems. But how interesting is it to discover your personal solution and to discover there are more than only one solution. I also could do I could move on, and then I discover, okay, here's tension, here's release. This is what is this? It's a different kind of tension, maybe. Oh, this is also tension, kind of, but again a different tension. And I could try to really feel deep inside my body and inside my emotions. What are the different qualities of tension? There is not only tension, there are different qualities of tension, you know?
Mhm.
More or less, more bearable or less bearable, and there are different qualities of solutions, more or less fulfilling or satisfying. Um, so there are so many things that you can discover by just playing two notes.
Yeah, and like I'm pretty sure if we try, there's gonna be a book out there that tells you all that stuff in a very, theory kind of base. But what I love about your approach is I think in that process of discovery, we can internalize those feelings, those understanding in a very different way than you can absorb from like a theory book. It's a very
Yes.
different experience.
Exactly. The theory book would tell you, okay, a second, the interval of a second is a dissonance. These are the technical terms, and you can resolve a second into a third, and a third is a consonance. But what is the feeling? No, nobody tells us anything about feelings in this. I mean, and of course, I will discover then when I leave out a string between two notes that I play, that this always causes a consonance. And this also causes something that most people would name as beautiful. But and then of course you can say, okay, and this is a third. It's a technical term. It's a third. It's the interval of a third, and the interval of a third is a consonance, and the consonance is releasing of tension, or is it has not so much tension, if at all. But then you still don't have the connection to your feelings and to your body reactions. But if you realize, aha, if I play this, like if I say mama, this causes release, and this makes me relax, and this causes a smile on my face, then I have a much richer experience than just this brain stuff. Aha, a third is a consonance. And this will stick much better. I have learned way more than when I just read, okay, a third is a consonance, and this is said to be a beautiful sound. Of what is beautiful? I mean, this is relative. um, and and so we discover by exploring, we probably will discover some rules, and the rules will be different depending on the cultural background that we come from. Because if I come from the tradition of Chinese classical music, I will have a different feeling of what is beautiful and what isn't. I don't know much about Chinese music, Peking opera, and I'm not acquainted with that tradition.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I don't really like what I hear.
It can be very, very daunting.
Yeah, um, but maybe somebody who has dealt with this style of music for his whole life has a completely different attitude to that music.
Mhm.
Or gamelan music from Bali. For me, it's quite exhausting to listen to that. But if I grew up in that tradition, it would be completely different. So what I am discovering probably is related to my listening experience. And when I am from the Western world, I probably am used to listen to folk music from my country, or even folk music from other countries like Ireland. Many people play Irish music, and I used to listen to Irish music. Or I'm used to listen to classical music, or to pop music, rock music, to maybe, depends. The more I listen to a certain style, the more I am cultivated in that style, and the more I will find when I play sounds that fit into that specific style, I will like it because I like that style of music. And I like it because I am so used to it. Uh, and you can get used to a lot of styles. I didn't like so much Indian music, but once I got a bit deeper into it, I discovered the beauty inside it, and I discovered the fascination of this music. But I had to get used to it. And then I discovered the rules, not so much from books, but I discovered, aha, this sounds a bit like this what I heard before, and aha, here this principle comes up again. So I discover some principles of this music. And this is what's about, that we discover the principles of the music that we like and that we are used to listen to. And now, once I discovered these principles, and then I get back to the sheet music, to the dots, then I have the chance to look at the music from a completely new point of view, because then I see, aha, here they use these thirds that are so beautiful and that have this and that character that I have found out about myself. And this composer uses these thirds here in this composition, or he uses a certain, like, the more you proceed, the more you discover like chords and chord progressions, and you discover the modes, and you experiment with different lever settings so that you discover different scales and so on. And you will will find more and more elements. There is rhythm, there is melody, there is tone color, there is chords. There is chords are this. It's the this is horizontal and this is vertical.
Vertical.
This is the vertical dimension of music, and this is the horizontal. And melody is horizontal. It consists out of notes, different or the same notes, and they flow in time, and they flow in a certain measurement of time, which we call the measure and the time signature and so on. So this is all about the rhythmic aspect of music. And we have this vertical structure, which is what sounds at the same time. And how does it sound together? It's about intervals that we play at the same time, like this, or chords. And chords, again, can develop to a horizontal structure, which would be a chord progression. And then we can combine chord progressions with melody lines. And then we can combine melody lines with rhythmic structures. And we can combine chords with rhythmic structures. That would be accompaniment patterns. Are chords in a rhythmical structure. That's accompaniment. And so there are so many elements in music, and we can look at them isolated, and after a while they will somehow combine with each other, and every time in a new way, because there are only a few elements. It's rhythm, it's pitch, and it's sounding together, it's harmony. These are basically the elements of music, maybe sound, color, and dynamics, but these are only side elements. And like it's a difference if I play it up here or down here. It's a different tone color, but it's not as essential as melody, rhythm, and harmony. These are the three basic elements, and we can discover them isolated, and we can combine them in so many, many, many ways. And this is what I try to teach in a way where there is no right or wrong, but I give little prompts. I say, okay, let's experiment today with the subject of two notes sounding together. This is about intervals, or sounding one after the other. This is more like melody, but not still not really melody if I have only two notes like this. Maybe this is like the seedling of a melody, because after a while, when I add some rhythm, beginning of a very famous German song. Guten Abend, gute Nacht. Do you know that song?
No. Oh, okay. Now I know. Now you're pretty. Yes, I know. I definitely know the song.
That's a
Yes.
lullaby.
Yes.
And it starts with C, in my case, it's not,
Okay.
with a third. And I have a repetition and I have a rhythm. And now suddenly it's the start of a melody. But originally it was only 2 notes. I added
Yeah.
some rhythm and I added a sequence, a certain sequence that I
Right.
repeat so that it's recognizable. And this is how a melody appears out of a certain number of notes that I choose to play. I bring it into a sequence which is recognizable.
Right. So I had a light bulb moment as you were describing this. So my kids and I, we both like to play Lego. But here's the difference. I can only follow the instruction. You tell me I'm building a house and I'm going to follow every step. Everything is going to be color coordinated. It's look exactly like the instruction, and that's the only way I'm comfortable with. And your settling is kind of like my kids, where they will take 2 or 3 Lego block at a time and they kind of figure out how to fit together, and then they will do that with the other stuff, and then one day they will build something completely out of their imagination, not color matching, but it looks just fine as a product. So that reminds me of your approach with the settling, where you're learning how to fit little things together, and then one day you're like, well, okay, well, now I can use all these things I have learned and build something completely out of my imagination, and it fits because that's what they like and that's how it comes together.
And even more important, when I start playing purposeless, at the beginning I don't have any imagination at all.
Interesting.
Or not necessarily. Sometimes I have, but sometimes I haven't. I just start anywhere and I react to what I hear. And this is what I mean. If we get back to this book, she has these 4, I think it's 4 steps. Yes, she says the first step is pact. So you have a pact. I will do this. I will do 2 notes. I will play with 2 notes today. Okay? This would be the pact. And then you act. You will do it. And then you react to what you hear. So your imagination was not there. You just had a pact. I will play 2 notes. I have no idea how they will sound, but I will play 2 notes. This is my pact. So we could say this is kind of a goal, but it's not a goal in the
Traditional sense. Yeah.
sense. It's more something that I decide to do without knowing where it will lead me, and then I will do it. I do it. Okay. Now I will next time. My new pact is. Oh, I hear. Oh, it sounds beautiful. Now my next pact is okay. I will play them not together, but first the lower note and then the higher note. Okay, interesting. Aha, beautiful. Now this is getting boring. This is my reaction. It's getting boring. First my reaction was, oh, this is beautiful. I will repeat it because I like it. But after a while, my reaction will be, okay, what next? I'm bored. Okay, I could try to do it the other way around. Okay, interesting. Yeah, okay, but after a while, this again gets boring. And this is the point where I get back to the next pact, to the next here and now. Okay, now I will add some rhythm and maybe repetitions, and I listen to that again. Maybe I could add some pulse, like. inside the pulse, I could change the rhythm. Okay, and after a while, this also again gets boring and so on. So I react to what I hear, and maybe suddenly an impulse comes up. And my impulse is, I really am bored of playing only two notes. So I will have a new pact. I will allow myself a third note. Ah, interesting. Oh, when I do that, I want to add a fourth note. And I follow this impulse. So my imagination develops while I am doing something. And it's a reaction to what I'm hearing. I am not having a plan to compose a certain piece. I'm just having this pact. And the pact renews itself every now and then. It often is not even consciously. It's just that I feel the impulse to go further. And if you go further too quick, you will immediately find out, because then you will feel stress. If you proceed too quickly, then you will lose yourself and you will get into this old pattern of doing something right or wrong and judging and so on. It's no longer collecting data. That would be if I said, okay, I discovered the song of Guten Abend, Gute Nacht. Now I want to know how it goes on. For me, this is easy because I know the piece. But if I don't know it, then I could start struggling and finding the right notes, and then I'm out of discovering something. The
Right.
Okay, I can discover which are the right and which are the wrong notes, but this might be frustrating because I would start to distinguish between right and wrong again, and this is not where we really want to get to again, because this is where we come from. This is the
Right.
past.
So I think what you have just told us in the last little while is such a brilliant way to distinguish um, pursuing a goal versus experimentation, and the difference and how you interact with that, and how the outcome or purpose for those are very different. So New Year's coming up. And something that I've noticed in January is there's a lot of goal setting workshop. Let's go figure out what we want to do for the rest of the year. And interestingly, a lot of research actually say we maybe stick with our goal for about 20 some days and then it taper off. So there's a part of me that don't really believe in goal setting. And I've talked about this with my previous teacher. But what I want to propose to our audience and myself is to try experimenting and maybe get into that habit of trying and discovering without a very concrete outcome that we're trying to strive for. So one of the ways that we can do that is to check out your Harp Seedlings, which we will post the information there. And I've seen some really great experiments in the Facebook group. We're going to tell our audience about that. But I've also asked you to design a little sort of advent calendar for improvisation for us that we can try out in the next couple of weeks. And perhaps then, we'll go into a new year with a different mindset of how we want to approach music and experimentation. So tell us what you have come up with for us, and maybe explain a little bit about Harp Seedling if this applies, so that we know what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, my idea was to just show you 4 seedlings. Seedlings are these little tiny prompts where you can start from. Like we said, we want to talk about purposeless play. This is like a seedling. for a conversation, and I will provide 4 different seedlings for you that you can experiment with, and I will give you some ideas on how to experiment with, because if you are not very experienced, maybe the seedling alone won't lead you anywhere. I mean, you could sit down and say, okay, I have played 2 notes now. So this was already one. This was a seedling already to play with 2 notes. It's one of the beginner seedlings that are for free on my Ko-fi page, by the way. But I will give you some other ideas, and I also will give you some ideas on how to develop these seedlings, how to experiment, which pacts you could find for yourself, which does not necessarily mean you have to take them all. You just take what makes you most curious right at the moment. And the thing that I want to encourage, or I want to give you the idea of, instead of setting a goal in the future, instead of that, having a pact with yourself. I will, for this and that time, this is what she describes very detailed in her book. I really recommend this book for everybody, not only for musicians, but especially for musicians that want to free themselves a bit. I will. I don't try, but I will do this and that for, let's say, 5 days. Like, I will play with the idea of 2 notes for 5 days. This is the pact. And then comes step number 2. You act. You do it. Or the other possibility is you find out that you don't. So this is also an option. You can say, I will do it, and then you don't. This could be something that you also could just recognize. Oh, I had a pact and I don't stick to my pact. But don't change your pact during the 5 days, because part of the pact was doing it 5 days or not doing it 5 days. And then at the end of the 5 days, you can evaluate your reaction. So you can write on, okay, what worked and what didn't work. So it worked to play with 2 notes every day, 5 days long, or it didn't work. And if it didn't work, then what could I do next? It would lead you to a new pact. And you go on until you find something that works, and then you decide if you want to go on with that, or if you want to change your pact again, or find a completely new pact. For instance, some people say, I will play the harp for 1 month now. And after 1 month, they find out, oh, it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't fit into my everyday life, or I don't have the joy that I expected it. So, and then I change my pact and I say, okay, in the next month, I will paint a painting every day for 15 minutes. Also fine. And then there's the 4th step, and that's impact. And she names it growth with the world. And that includes that you share your process. Of course, maybe not with the whole world. Maybe this feels a bit unsecure, but you could share it in this Facebook group called Harp Seedlings and Sound Bath, which is kind of a protected environment where only harp players are in, because I check everybody who wants to get into the group. Why do you want to get into that group? Are you a harp player, and what do you expect from this group? And then they get the go button and they can be members of the group. So there are no spammers inside that group, or evil person. And if there is somebody who is commenting in a nasty way, he will be removed from the group. Goodbye. We don't want that. It's a very friendly group where you can share your experiments, and where you get very interesting comments sometimes from people, very surprising comments sometimes. Sometimes people think, oh, this is nothing what I have created, but it's a start for a real piece, maybe. And then there might happen something like just today when I commented to somebody who said, oh yeah, I want to create a piece out of this basic idea. And I said, well, I think maybe it also could be an option to not create a fixed piece, but to keep the idea flowing and to see what unfolds by not keeping it tight, but by letting it flow, by letting it grow, by letting it live. And this might be surprising for somebody to read, oh, maybe this is also a way that I haven't thought about, that I not necessarily need to write down a piece to have some real piece of music. I could just go on like I have started, and it can go on forever with only one simple idea. And sometimes people think, it's full of mistakes, full of failure, full of imperfection. And then other people say, oh, I liked it a lot. I enjoyed listening to it. And this also could be a surprise, and it could be very supportive. And sometimes I offer support to people. If people bring up a question like, I don't really know how to go on with this or that, or I'm not quite content, so what could I change? And then sometimes I offer some support. I wouldn't call it advice, because advice is do it this way. Support is more something, you could try this or you could try that and see what happens. And if you don't like it, then leave it. And if you don't, if you feel overwhelmed, then reduce it and just see what happens. And sometimes other people as well throw in their ideas, and they get inspiration from each other when they see how other people experiment with the same basic idea. Then they say, oh, I haven't come up with this idea how to develop this basic elemental seedling, but I could try this as well and see what I find when I do it the way she did it, you know. So this is the space that is free for everybody who is at Facebook, and everybody who is not, congratulations.
It is a really lovely space for sharing, because that group all share that love of experimentation, right? You're there to give each other that support to play and to try, which is really lovely. So there's a couple things I recommend everyone to check out. So Stefanie actually have an English coffee page as well. So if you're worried that she's only going to speak to you in German, she's really good at English, as you already figured out. So her coffee page will offer English seedlings, and you still do German as well. So it's yours to choose. Sign up for her newsletter, because you also get a free tutorial video that comes with the newsletter as well. So the links to all of that is going to be in the description. The Facebook group complements your Harp Seedling coffee page really well. So I recommend that especially if you're her coffee page subscriber, join the Facebook group so you can see what other people are trying. And then the prompts that you're going to do for us for the Advent calendar, we'll for sure have them in Talking Harps channel. And Stefanie will also share in her other platforms to encourage other people to try out. And if you end up trying one of the prompts and you want to share it and see how other reacts to it and see what the impacts are, Facebook group is where you want to join and share that. And Stefanie will be there as well. And I'm sure she's going to be looking forward to seeing what everyone has come up with. And I think ultimately, we would love to see more people embrace this playfulness and purposeless exploration in music that I think at the end of the day is so much more interesting than all of us trying to learn the dots on the page, because then that just means we end up playing the same stuff over and over and no one ever come up with anything new, isn't it? We
Yeah, well, I wouldn't judge it too hard. I mean, there are a lot of really beautiful pieces, and I have written a lot of pieces myself. And I don't want to name too many people because then the people that I don't name would feel set back. But
Right,
we all know the people that write this beautiful music. And
absolutely.
I'm not judging that to be bad to play their beautiful music as well. But there is another possibility to play the harp as
Yes,
well. It's not excluding each other. It's combining. It's
yes,
um it's it's enriching
it
your
is.
musical life if you do
Yes,
both. I mean, or of course you can do only playing the dots on a note. Nothing bad about that. If you enjoy that, fine. And you also could decide only to improvise. Nothing bad about that. You can enjoy that. Do whatever you enjoy. But there's one thing that I want to really shout out. Forget self-optimizing stuff. Forget this pressure of optimizing yourself because it's not joyful, because it's always focused on what you are missing. If you are not the optimum of yourself, then you are missing something. And you have to get somewhere in the future so that you don't miss it anymore. And this is what causes a lot of pressure, and this is what causes stress, and this is what takes away joy from our lives. Sometimes we have to do it because we are somehow dependent on earning some money or something like that, because we need to get something to eat and a roof on something where we can live and so on. But when it comes to a hobby, which for most of the people harp playing is, and even for professionals it could be, they also could decide to, besides playing operas, they could decide to spend some lovely time at the harp doing purpose-free experimentation. That this is not self-optimization. It's just growing by doing something, and you will grow. There is no other way. You will grow. Everything on earth is growing, and then it's dying, and then something new is growing, and then it's dying again, and then it's about letting some things go and making space for new things, and you can always decide to let something go and let something new grow. So it's a lot of freedom that I want to encourage you, instead of putting this pressure to the new year to get somewhere defined. Okay?
I love that. I love that. And I also think that it's actually very hard for us to define where we want to go all the time, because it implies that you know how to get there. So, in the absence of knowing how to get there, experimentations is the way to help us move forward, but in a
And
more
if you know where
stress-free
you want to
way.
go, then you can fail.
Yeah.
If you say, oh, I want to be able to do this and that by that and that time, then of course you can fail. This is something that we don't want to experience. Failure is not so nice. And if we just have a pact, then of course we can follow the pact, or we cannot follow, but then still we have this pact. Okay, I didn't follow my pact to play 5 days. It's not failure, it's just data. Something didn't work with my pact. That's everything. That's all. No failure. It's just information.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and talk to us about all that you hold very near and dear to yourself, that you've shown us the way to experiment, I think, very meaningfully in this conversation. And I hope it's going to inspire our audience to try experimentation with your music. So look out for those prompts, and I look forward to hearing from you all in the Facebook group. Thank you.
And thanks again for having me for a second time. I enjoyed talking to you very much. I also enjoyed the preparation work that you did. You sent your questions to me, and I thought, oh, brilliant questions. How can I answer them in a certain amount of time? And I have almost said nothing of what I have written down. I have completely talked about different things, but that doesn't matter. I enjoyed it a lot. That's
Thank
improvisation
you.
in
It
talking.
is.
And I hope that you will enjoy the four seedlings that I provide. And I would be glad to see you in the Facebook group and to see what you find and what you share, and to offer support if you want that. And yeah, just be there for you.
Thank you. I'm sure I'll be talking to you again very soon.
Okay. I would enjoy that.